we get to spend some time together. Hey guys, we're going to be continuing chapter 4 today because we actually started it right before the exam. The scores in the exam were pretty good for the most part. I was very happy with how you guys did. That being said, I will be going back through my attendance records for some of the extracurricular things we offer bonus points for, and I'll be adding those in hopefully by the middle of the week. I will be posting midterms no later than Friday. So, guys, if you didn't do as well as you were hoping, don't be upset. We've got a lot of time left in the semester. Guys, I don't know why I still have the test up there, but I did. And I wanted to remind you also that I sent out a video link. I don't know why the first one showed up for some people, not for others. I sent it out again. If you go under Chapter 4, there's a link to about a 40-minute video, and it's all about data collection in Amazon. All I'm asking you to do, guys, is to do a discussion posting, not responses, not 2 replies to everybody else, 1 discussion posting to answer a couple brief questions about the film. It's pretty interesting. Has anybody had a chance to watch it yet? What did you think so far?
I think it's really interesting how these guy talks about just cases, how he did everything,
There's definitely a workaholic culture there. One of the things you're also going to hear from, one of the people you're going to hear from, is one of the original computer scientists who worked for Amazon too. So again, that's 10 easy points. That's a way to bulk up your grade in this class as well. If everybody gets it posted by the 28th, if everybody gets a discussion post in by the first part of the day on the 28th, I can probably include that in the midterm grade. It'll probably help everybody's grade. So take a moment to do that if you can. Guys, some other things that are happening. Your next assignment's not due till after the break. Other than the discussion assignment, we're going to be asking you to go through how to build a website, what steps you would go through, what approaches you would take. Would you insource? Would you outsource? Would you hire somebody to do it? Would you do it yourself? This is more of a management type exploration necessarily than a pure technical exploration, because we're going to be talking about the advantages and disadvantages of insourcing versus outsourcing as we get into class today. But before we jump in any further, just to be clear, guys, this week, watch the movie, do a discussion post, get it done by Friday. It's not actually due till midnight on Friday. If everybody gets it done by midnight on Friday, I will include it in the midterm grade, and it'll help everybody out. You get 10 easy points for doing a discussion posting. You have to watch the movie, though, and it's only about 40 minutes long. So can you guys, by show of hands, who here can commit to doing that? All right. If you guys can get that done, that gets 10 free easy points for everybody. Help all of our midterm grades. Guys, I've talked a little bit about Casper, and the reason I've enjoyed talking about these guys is because we have an alumni who used to be in charge of marketing for Casper. Her name is Terry Rokovich, and she did an amazing job for Casper. Have any of you ever gotten to meet Terry when she's been in alumni functions? She actually just is in the process of doing her first IPO for her startup. I forget the name of the company, but she's selling high-end pet food because she loves dogs. She left Casper to do her own startup. It's probably a good thing. Right now, Casper had their IPO a couple weeks ago, and the stock hit at a price of about $12 per share. That's not a great opening price for an IPO. And they're down now to about $9.86 per share. I want to show you a brief video on what's going on with Casper being a .com company that might be a .com bust company to get your opinions about why the company maybe isn't working. The hype. What's the problem with Casper? Yes.
Mattresses are a great business. If you need something to buy every week or a couple weeks or a year,
Yeah, I guarantee nobody in this classroom who's ever been shopping during class time and said, "What the hell? I'm going to buy a mattress today." I bet that has never happened. Prove me wrong, quick.
I think also it's like a lot of people, it's an important purchase. Like you want to make sure you're satisfied. So, I mean, for me personally, like I'm not gonna just buy something, especially if you need it right away, and then if you don't like it, you're still searching for a mattress or something. It's not something you can actually like try before the purchase.
Yeah, so it's something we're going to spend a lot of time with. Yes.
And I know Casper has the ability you can send it back if you don't like it, right? That's one of their features. So like, unlike a store where you can go in and like you can land on one, get it all picked out, and have it set before you leave. Like you're taking it, it's bad for the customer and the company because you're taking a pretty big risk ordering something you've never felt before.
Mm-hmm.
So if it comes and you don't like it, that's a whole process for the customer to send it back, and also it's super expensive for the company there's a lot. They're taking a really big risk of like hoping the customer likes it, or they don't want to go through the work of sending it back.
And just, it's an excellent point. By the percentages, if you had to guess, 100% Caspers that get shipped out, what percentage gets returned? What was the answer? Yeah, that's the correct answer. It's 40%. Was that a total guess? Yeah. Man, if you go with Todd to Vegas, this was your weekend. And Brian, you had a comment as well?
Yeah, I was saying that usually companies like fix a problem that people have, but I don't think there was like a problem with people going to stores and buying a mattress. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Nobody was saying, you know what, if there's one thing that really sucks is having to buy a mattress every 10 years. Yes.
I mean, I feel like Amazon being like grocery services that like it like fixes it. Like it fixes a problem. Like, you go out and you have a problem with shopping at the grocery store, so you just have it delivered the next day. But this doesn't solve that problem the same way because you're still going to get the mattress a week later.
Yeah.
More than just go out and get the mattress.
I think what we're seeing here, and the reason I bring up Casper as an example, not to slam on and along, Terry did a great job in marketing this company, but their inherent business model was flawed. We're talking about, for example, even though Uber's not profitable, they've got an interesting business model. They're fixing the problem. We're taking Amazon Go. They're making things more convenient. I don't know how much more convenient it is to wait for something that I might end up having to send back because I had to lay on and try it out. They give you 100 nights free sleep to try this out, and it still gets your money back. So even after you made the sale, and it's 100 days later, you still could be losing the sale. And when we think about why, for example, depending if you go to Boscov's or Wolf Furniture or wherever you buy your mattress, as was so eloquently put, you can go to the store, lay down on it, and see it if you like it. This is an example sometimes of tech coming into an area where maybe it shouldn't be. And the very fact that now Casper did this, Casper's in talks with Target so they can start selling their mattresses in Target. That kind of defeats the purpose why the company existed in the first place. You're simply another mattress company. Any other thoughts before we move into our material for today, guys? Yes, sir.
I do think that actually might be smart because if people are just going to like that way you don't have to go to specifically a mattress store because if people in there you know they need a new mattress or something. It's like some people go there a lot. So if they're already comfortable in the store, they can just purchase it. I actually think that might be a good move for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think it might peak their sales a little bit at that point. They're kind of just a mattress company then.
Yeah.
Because anybody can sell a mattress at Target, and there would have to be something else to differentiate them. It was pretty interesting though. They mentioned they were getting into pillows and comforters and things. They actually were manufacturing pillows for Casper right outside of Altoona, Pennsylvania, at the Carpenter plant. That's where they manufacture some of their stuff. And remember my family used to work there. They were very demanding in terms of their quality and their tolerances. So I don't mean to say Casper doesn't have a quality product. I mean to say that I think their business model is flawed. So when we get in today, guys, what we're going to be talking about are basically turning our websites, turning our mobile presences, anything that we're doing involving e-commerce still has to satisfy a business need. And we're going to be talking about how we make sure that happens today. So to dive in, guys, this is something right out of our text, and we call it an e-commerce presence map. We've got multiple types of presences in the world for our companies that all play into whether or not we buy things. If we're Amazon, of course we've got a website. Of course we've got a mobile app. We've got something to drive functionality, but we've got other things as well. So the first column, we've got our type of presence. We're going to go through platforms and activities in terms of what is this version of our presence, what is its platform, how does it operate, and what is it there for. Guys, if you go to Times Square, you'll still see traditional billboards for companies like Google and Amazon. Why is a company like Google still buying advertising space in the typical physical world? Even though they're an e-commerce company or a technology giant, why are we still going through what we refer to as offline types of media? Why might you do that? Yes?
People who aren't using those apps, those services as much. Like when their main markets may still be like older people.
We're creating awareness for people who may not be online. Amazon still advertises on television, for example, and even though Amazon is its own company, they also have a social media presence anywhere you can think of. So our type of presence, starting off, the most fundamental part of e-commerce, it is e-commerce after all, is how we're actually getting our customers to buy stuff, which would be our website or our mobile app. Many companies these days, for example, if you're Uber, it's more important to have a good app than it is to have a good website. So our platform for that could be traditional, and by traditional we mean laptops or desktops, could be a mobile device, could be a tablet. When tablets first came out, in the first several years of the iPad, it was very good for browsing things like catalogs. It was one of the early drivers of e-commerce in the post-PC era. What are the activities we can do on that particular presence? Well, we can search for products, we can look at products, we can refer people to other sites, we can even have sponsorships if we're a third-party friendly site. When we get into social media, what's the difference, guys? Because we've got a traditional website and we've got our social media presence. What's the difference in the role of those two entities for a company? Why should we look at our social media differently when we look at our core website? Yes?
I think the ads that are on that mobile devices are more interactive. We're trying to get them now, right at that moment.
Interactivity. We're trying to do something with them, and it's a word that begins with an E. What is it? So close. If you're going to get married, you get engaged. We're trying to say, hey, dear customer, will you be mine forever? We're trying to get engaged, And by the way, if you're going to engage with somebody, make it classy, make it something memorable, get them in with you. We want people to want to talk to us. So that's what it's about. It's not necessarily about hard selling. It's about getting people talking. It's about getting people resharing content. It's even advising people what they might want to buy from your company in a way that does not come across as hard sales. So you can see we've got formal presence at the top. We've got social media and engagement. Now we get back into older forms of engagement. The deeper the blue gets, the older the approach is. Email, even though it's something that we all are paying less and less attention to all these days. By the way, why are we paying less attention to email all the time? For example, why do I have to send 6 emails out to my students to get it right back? Yes?
We get so many because we tune them out, they blend in, nothing, they don't stand out.
It's starting to become like static, isn't it? There's so much of it. And even though Google and other companies try to help us by organizing our emails into primary folders, secondary, social, all these things, it still is something that's very difficult sometimes to get people to engage on. People in my generation are more likely to check our email than you guys are. We're more likely to click coupons, for example, than you guys are. So why do companies continue to do it? Why does every company go to want your email address? Yes?
It's about 100 million emails. 10,000 people want it.
And it costs nothing. It's a click of a button. Yes?
Also, like, kind of with that, even if one person, if I still get 100 emails from a company in a week, there's a chance I might open one of them. So even if they keep sending them, they know they might reach me with one out of the 100.
It's true. And then that company is winning the lottery when they do. And the other part of it too, guys, if you give somebody your email address, that's a way they can track you online as well. Because, for example, how many of you use your primary personal email address as the same email address you use for most of your social media? I do too. If you go to my personal email address, it's what I use for Facebook, it's what I use for Instagram, it's what I use for Amazon. So it's very easy with things like cookies with a single email address. If I open that one email to get that coupon from Denny's, which I do, by the way. I love Denny's, and you get the 20% off coupon. Oh, it's legit. My wife hates those because she knows where we're going to dinner that week, and it's going to be Denny's. But that's what happens. You get old like this, and all of a sudden, you'll remember this. The first day in your lives, you actually take the person you love most in the world out to dinner and say, I'm going to pull out a coupon when it's time to pay. You know you've crossed the threshold. It's one step further to the way you got in sneakers and the track pants and just not caring anymore. But we use email for all these things. And finally, at the bottom level, we've got traditional media. Guys, here's the trick. Even though we're all watching streaming movies these days, and we're binge-watching shows, I want to know by show of hands, how many of you at any point in the last month of your lives have ever put on cable or broadcast TV just to have some noise in the background? It's still comforting in some strange way sometimes. I leave it on for my dog. When I leave for work in the morning, I turn on the news for my dog. He's watching the 700 Club. He's watching the new news, and he loves The Price is Right. But the bottom line is this stuff still helps us position our brands. So even though we're talking about e-commerce, all of these things form a common and shared way that we approach. Amazon wants to have the same brand identity, regardless if they are on their website, social media, email marketing, or even advertising in Times Square. So this is all how we play into our total e-commerce map. So when we start thinking about how we're building our site, guys, all of those factors somehow play into these things. When we're talking about branding, it's going to perpetuate through all of this. Here's the biggest challenge. I want you to write this down, guys. The biggest challenge of creating I want you to write this down, guys. The biggest challenge of creating a successful e-commerce presence is not being technically skilled. The biggest challenge of creating a successful e-commerce presence is understanding your own business model, understanding your own business objectives, understanding how your company actually works. Because if you don't, putting a system on top of a flawed manual way of doing things does not do anything other than automate the flaws. So you need to understand that system. In the 1950s, in the early days of computer science, they had these guys who were called the systems men. And they would come into companies and analyze what worked well and what was inefficient before they would automate anything. Because if you automate a problem, you're just making the problem move along more quickly. So you need to understand what your objective is. Casper, do they really understand their own business objectives? Do they have a clear understanding of their own business model? What do you think? So tell me about it. Well, I would say that they have a fundamental understanding if they're selling products at a profit, they hope. I don't think they really understood how well the online business model did work for their product. If you take Uber, for example, even though they're still losing money, they did understand the fact, well, did Uber start first off saying, hey, we need to have a desktop version or we need to have an app? Where did Uber start off? Yeah, because nobody's carrying a laptop with them on the street to say, I need a taxi. They understood their own problem. They understood their own business model. And to that end, once you understand what your business objectives are, you've got to know what tech to choose. And that's going to be down to whether or not you're going to build the site yourself, whether or not you're going to subcontract it. We're talking management. Who's actually going to manage all this stuff? If you've got more money than God, maybe you can pay somebody to do all this for you and just manage it with a click of a button. Hardware architecture, that means, and again, do not fear if you're not computer science or if you've never built your own server. That's not what this class is about. We are going to talk about the value and understanding of hardware architecture and software work. How you design your site. For example, if you go on to any really well-run e-commerce site, yes, there's reviews. There's ways for people to see video demonstrations. There's ways for people to be able to get in and really have a good experience with content. So that means that we've got to be able to build hardware that will support all that sort of stuff and design multiple tier systems. You'll understand what that means. Then we get into telecommunications. Guys, has anybody here ever lived through an internet outage at St. Francis University? Raise your hand if you have. Guys, there's a reason why, for example, if you, for the same price, if you could host your website at St. Francis University, you can put it on our servers here, or you could host it on Amazon for the same price, where would you put it and why? Same price, same access, everything. Where would you put it and why?
I would do Amazon.
I would too. Tell me why you would.
Their stuff isn't going to go out, and there's so many people working on it. It's like it would be much more secure, just like all around better.
And do you think that Amazon has one internet connection? No, like nobody at Amazon's going and tripping over a cable and knocking out all the communications. Nobody's saying, damn it, Jeff unplugged the internet again. So we've got, it'd be pretty wild if that's the way it actually works. They've got redundancy, we've got multiple pathways. And that's why, for example, we need to think about that stuff. And human resources, here's what I mean by that. How many of you in here are expert Unix programmers? Okay, how many of you have set up multiple tiered media servers before? Me either. And what that means is you occasionally have to hire people who do. So you've got to consider if you've got the skills in-house or not. Human resources is meaning how we're going to get people to do this job. All this stuff plays into something called the systems development life cycle. Even if you don't understand what this means, how many of you have heard the term before? Anybody here take MIS 343 Systems Analysis and Design? If you haven't, this is what it's all about. It basically means we're getting into taking requirements, converting real business requirements into technology requirements. And the steps we have, systems analysis, really comes down to this. What do I want my presence to do? If I'm Uber, what I want this presence to do in the form of a mobile app is enable people who can't get taxi cabs to get rides where they need to go. Systems design means what kinds of capabilities do we actually need to get before we actually start building this hardware and software. What components do we need? Then we build it, and then we test it. Guys, we test this stuff because we want to make sure it can work. We want to make sure the components play together. We want to make sure all the devices work well, and we want to make sure it's going to work well under a load. And finally, we implement the system. That is the fundamental of systems development and what we refer to as the old waterfall model. Now, anybody here, I know Jill Scott's going to know this term. What's the difference between waterfall and agile? Do you know?
Can I say?
Please do.
Like waterfalls, whenever you code up everything at like one time, you don't do it in multiple parts, just like one big package. It kind of sucks because if you need to change anything, you can't because it's just like one big thing. Whereas agile is like where you're doing usually like 2-week sprints and you're continuously adding on to it and making changes to it. So that whenever it's finished, you have this product you can like take apart and change if you need to.
And which way is the world going?
Agile.
You got it. Because we can't do things slowly anymore. Here's an example of the difference between waterfall and agile in your lives. All right. How many of you have ever, in your cars, had to get a software update? Okay. How many of you in the last week of your lives have had to do a Windows update? Even if you don't know you have, you probably have. Windows on average ships, this is going back to the 95 days, this is how long ago this is, with an average of 5,000 to 10,000 lines of bad code, meaning stuff that they knew would break, stuff that wasn't finished, stuff that wasn't completely done. That's why we get system patches. When we have things like agile development, it means it's not completely done when it rolls out. And think about it, guys. We come to accept it right now, whether it's our phones or whether it's our computers. We know, pardon my French, that sometimes the shit's broken when it leaves the factory and we've got to get it fixed. Would we accept that in other areas of our lives? Probably not. If I knew, for example, that one of the 4 legs of my chair was broken when I bought it, I probably wouldn't buy it. But that's why tech works the way it does. It goes out so quickly these days. So we have this illustrated for you, though, guys, in terms of the way these pieces go together. And the reason we call it a waterfall methodology, if you were doing all these steps in order, and as Jill so succinctly put, that was a good description, by the way, between those two. And waterfall models of systems analysis and design, the water starts here and works its whole way down to the bottom. These would actually be staggered so that they're in a row. It means you don't move on until you get the first component fixed. In agile programming, you go back and forth. Agile systems development, all these things fit together because we're developing a system. If you're a little confused right now, don't worry about it. This stuff will all work together, guys. But before we get into the different types of objectives, because I've been talking for almost a half hour, we're going to stop for our first question or comment of the day. What questions would you like to ask? Yes?
It's not a question, but I've been seeing over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, I've been seeing a bunch of ads for Quibi.
Telling you. I think it's going to be interesting to see how many people jump on it. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll be a success. I'll be excited to find out. So it could be showing up. By the way, I was so psyched how many of you got that bonus question correct on the test. Awesome. Question or comment from this side? Anything, guys? What would you like to ask today? Because if not, I'm going to randomly ask somebody a question. Yes. Jess.
Oh, wait. It's something really related, but I was thinking about this. Remember when you had to do that SWOT analysis for the company? You have to put that in, or was that just in class?
That was just in class experience. Yeah. Was it valuable?
Yeah, it was.
Excellent. Go ahead, Roger.
It was actually great when we were in
Oh yeah, you need the QR code. Wow.
And then the lady had to ask us to please scan it. But it was funny.
Yeah, it was funny because the morning we were getting ready to leave New York, I just took an early morning stroll, and I didn't realize we were so close to one, and I saw that same store. So, but sorry you got chased out. So Jeff Bezos is putting you on the naughty list now.
I know.
So he anyway, I was going to say something really nasty about Jeff Bezos, but he's probably listening to me, and I'm waiting on a hard drive from him. So he needs to ship his stuff to me. Okay, guys. In terms of systems analysis and planning, let's go back to what we were talking about. Again, automation and technology do not fix flawed systems or business models. So the first part of things, in terms of determining what you want your e-commerce presence to do, or what you want any business to do at the first layer of analysis, is what are your objectives from a business standpoint. So we're looking at our site and saying, what do we need to have this site do that'll contribute to what we want to have happen? If you're in business in the United States, if you're selling anything, what is your primary goal? It's business. What's our primary goal? What's that? Profit. Absolutely correct. We want to make money. So the number one driving aspect of this, the overarching thing, is how does this contribute to people buying stuff from us? So our business objectives. We want to sell really fancy cell phone cases, do everything at a profit. Our business objective is we want to rent high-end kitchen appliances at a profit. Our business objective is we want to deliver liquor using an app at a profit. Those are our business objectives. Those drive what we refer to as system functionalities. So what does our website actually have to do to make up for the first part, for our business objectives? And information requirements are what information do we need within the system to accomplish the business objective. When you see this spelled out, it'll make all kinds of sense. So let's say, for example, our business objective is to display goods. Well, sure, we want to display goods. If we're selling physical items, we need people to be able to see them, or maybe even watch videos of them. So our system would have to have some sort of way of displaying them. Maybe we call it a digital catalog. To make this catalog happen, you need to have text and graphics. So the fundamental components that go into the system functionality to make the business objective actually possible. I'm not going to read all of these to you, but here we go. Engage customers in conversation. Well, that's a business perspective, or business objective rather. You got to interact to sell. So maybe we have, for example, FAQs, user blogs, user forums, frequently asked questions. Well, for our information requirements, it means we have to have tools that will allow us to do these things. Here's a big one, guys. Execute a transaction. If you can't take credit cards, or you can't deal with cryptocurrency, or you can't deal with Venmo or PayPal or other kinds of digital wallets, you can't make money. People can't pay you. So you got to execute a transaction. So maybe you need an online shopping cart. Maybe you need some sort of connection to a credit card clearinghouse or other ways that people can make payments. By the way, guys, this is the one area where even people who are very good at building websites often sub out to somebody else. Why would you? Why might you want that function subbed out to somebody else? Yes?
If you don't know what you're doing, people are going to get their information stolen.
And who are they coming after?
You.
You got it. So a lot of people, for example, will sub out their information security and their shopping carts to other companies that are willing to take on the risk and basically say, if you get hacked, it's on us. You're essentially buying insurance. And we're going to talk in our chapter about security, about how we get into things like Verisight and SSL and all those things that also give us some degree of security. But to keep on going, accumulate customer information. We talked earlier about why companies want your email address. They want your email address so you're part of their database so they can market to you and potentially even sell your information to somebody else. That's an example of a business objective you might want. Well, here's the thing, too. Let's say, for example, Adam and I start a company together. We're equal partners in this company. And what are we selling, Adam? What should Adam and I sell? We're selling online. Skateboards. We're selling high-end skateboards. I like that answer very much. Well, let's say, for example, Adam and I part company. He realized I'm a pretty bad person to go into business with, and I stiff everybody on paying stuff. And the lights are getting shut off, and somebody pull their internet out. And all of a sudden, Adam wants to start his own company. If he's been good about keeping that database, what does Adam have to start his new company with? He's got a list of customers a mile long he can contact and market to. That's exactly why we aggregate that data. Other business objectives, again, this is right out of your text. In terms of providing after-sales support, here's the trick. Nobody writes, calls, or posts on your forums most of the time when they love your product. They tell you when you're doing something wrong. That's why it's very important. Customers who will complain tell us what to fix. Little statistics for you, by the way. If you have two customers, and you have one that already exists, one that doesn't exist yet. You have one that you already have as a customer, one you don't have as a customer yet. How much more expensive is it to get the customer to replace an existing customer than to keep an existing customer happy? I hope I asked that question. So if you got to keep this person happy, or you got to earn a new customer, which is more expensive? Exactly. How many more times? Close. It's 5 times. So man, Todd, take this guy to Vegas with you, man. This is your guy. You gamble, Brady? How'd you do it? Dude.
Oh, you
Yeah. This is your guy.
touch.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
It's
man.
not even that great. It's a pair of 10.
So, hell, if you go with Todd, I'll come out there with you guys. I'll put some money in this. We'll all make some money together. But finally, and again, in terms of understanding marketing effectiveness, the reason we track people isn't just to be creepers and to try to promote other stuff to them. We also want to find out if we're doing marketing, if we're putting targeted ads on other websites. For example, if I buy something from Nike and all of a sudden I buy something else from Nike because I click on a Facebook ad, for example, that tells me that the money I'm spending is making sense. You guys with me so far? Okay. So guys, all of this goes into setting business requirements. What we get in next is the idea of actually designing the system. Now, has anybody here, by show of hands, has anybody here ever built their own computer before? Tell me about your experience, if you don't mind. Were you building a gaming box, or what were you building? So, okay, tell me about the process you went through.
Well, first, like I had to compare to like building, like buying the same computer pre-built wasn't any cheaper because I'm like for me to like go on second building it and pick up cheaper. That's already all together.
Uh-huh.
And then I like compared the prices of each part with like different websites. So I ended up buying from like 4 different websites.
Okay.
And then I just put it all together. It's about like $800.
Wow. And how long did it take you to get everything and get it all up and running?
It was right after I graduated high school, and I finished like before I came here, so it was about 4 months.
Nice. Very cool. And you were picking your design specs. What, like, for example, why did you pick the video card that you picked?
Because it was like one of the better ones at the time was the NVIDIA GTX 970, which was like one of the higher ones of the last generation. So it was like a mid tier of the current generation.
Okay. So if it held up for like 3 or 4 years, you did pretty good.
I still have it, so it's still pretty good.
Pretty good. So what we're doing basically, what Brady's already done, he built a computer based on the needs that he had. It was video games, correct? All right. So what you're looking is what components do you need to be able to achieve the system functionality, to achieve the business perspective, business objective. I'm having trouble with my words today. So there are 2 ways to look at this. We've got logical and physical design. Logical design is simply saying, how would information move through this system? Physical design means what literal components would go into a system. Sometimes they look pretty similar. Sometimes they look a little different. Here's an example of a typical logical flow. Well, that's really hard to see, so I'm going to kill these lights and hopefully you guys will be able to see that a little better. So in terms of a logical design for a website, not much better at all. We've got the person who is hitting our website, for example. They're coming in through our front page. Well, we might have to verify whether or not they're an existing customer and ask for a login. So we've got that tied into a database. So somebody hits the front page, they hit Amazon.com and log in. Our customer database populates that front page with the information that says, yes, this person shopped for these things. This person is who they say they are. So after they log in, we're maybe getting displays of things that we might want to be able to purchase. Maybe we actually put something in a digital shopping cart and we check out with it. At this point, logistics take over and ship for us. All of this information, whether it's my login information, whether it's the product information, whether it's previous orders I've made, are all stored in a database. So if we look at that from a logical standpoint, there's a lot of parts that are moving back and forth. If we were looking at that from a physical standpoint, we'd be looking at things like what physical internet connection did you come through? What port on the router did you actually come through? What actual machines did you hit on the way? And again, they can look pretty similar, but know the following. Logical means how does information move through a system? Physical means how are the actual components connected? Does that make sense, the difference between the two guys? Okay. And again, sometimes they're very simple. Here's an example of a simplified example of a physical connection. We've got our customer who's coming in over whatever kind of internet they have, whether they're using a cell phone, whether they're using DSL, whether they're using higher speed internet. They're connecting from their local device out to the cloud, out to the internet, getting onto the backbone of the internet, coming onto our website, which might be living in our campus, if we're St. Francis University, might be living anywhere, because we can sub out our hosting for anyone. We've got all these devices that might be on separate servers or might be all on the same server, depending on how big our company is. For this particular group, we're using SQL as our database. We've got an ad server. We've got a catalog application. We've got mail. We've got an e-commerce suite from IBM. You can do all this in the same box if you've got a small company. Most people who have small companies might be running their database, their media, and all this on the same box. If you've got a bigger company, probably not. With me so far, guys. We're going to cover, I think, one or two more slides because this is stuff, I think it's exciting because it's the underpinnings of the internet, but it can be a little dense and it can be a little abstract, which is why we take it in chunks. Guys, when we hear the term from a basic business standpoint, for those of you who've had me for Biz 101 or have me currently for Biz 101, I apologize for being repetitive. When we hear the term outsourcing, does that have a positive or negative connotation? Yeah, tell me why, Adam. Saying I can't wait to get outsourced is like saying I can't wait to get a fill. You know, it's like nobody ever gets excited about the word outsourcing. It's got a terrible connotation to it. In this case, it simply means you're hiring somebody else to do a job rather than do it yourself. You may do it for lots of reasons. You may do it based on a lack of expertise in your company. You may do it based on a lack of time. You may do it because, well, you know, you've got other priorities. That's the reason people do it. So the biggest disadvantage to outsourcing, what would you guys guess? What's the biggest disadvantage to outsourcing? Well, definitely logistically it's tough, for sure.
Regulations
Well, that's true. And let's kind of clarify the term outsourcing too, because I did give you guys the stereotypical business standpoint of outsourcing. Let's say if we're outsourcing development of our website still within the United States, but to another company. Yes?
They may not understand your company quite as much as you do. Like, even though you may explain what you want, there might be some disconnect or it's not quite what you're expecting.
I think that's a great answer. It comes down to, do they know your business as well as you know your business? That's one disadvantage. What's another disadvantage? So communication of requirements for sure. Yes.
Like if they use something bad, it's gonna look bad on you. It's like, for example, a ton of websites use PayPal to like, do the transactions, and yesterday PayPal came out and said they got hacked. It's like all those websites look bad now.
Gosh, I used PayPal a lot. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
So wow, I guess I'm one of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a hack. It was like they found a big flaw that some people were using to get through, but it wasn't like a huge hack. It was just like a little like, backdoor kind of.
So we're talking about bearing the guilt for others' mistakes. Is that a good?
Yeah.
Okay. What else? What else about outsourcing? Let's say we got my friend Ryan here, who's very skilled in the art. If he does it himself versus having somebody else do it, which is going to cost more? So and also the thing is too, I'm putting Ryan on the hot seat here again. Anytime he wants to change the site, he can do it. It's up to him. It's his business. He can do whatever he wants with it. If he's got Brady over here on his payroll, Brady, every time he wants to change, you're gonna do it. Or you're gonna charge him for it. Hell yeah, man! That's how you make money. And so some of the other things too, guys. If we outsource this stuff, anytime we pull something in-house, somebody's got to learn it. Somebody's got to learn how to do it. That's good in the fact that we're keeping knowledge within our company. If we're paying somebody to do it and we never retain any of that knowledge, we're going to be stuck paying for that stuff all the time. So the biggest disadvantages to outsourcing are cost, control, having somebody understand your business, and also, as Jill stated, bearing the negative connotations when they make mistakes. Some of the advantages to outsourcing are, if you don't know how to do it, somebody else might do a better job than you, might create a better looking website. Now, in terms of hosting, guys, some people in this day and age still do host their own websites. They've got high-speed internet and they host a website on a server they built at home. Wonderful if you can do that. Here's the challenge, guys. How many of you guys have redundant generator power, multiple internet connections, air conditioning, and a raised floor in your back room to set up a proper server?
Regular people don't have that.
So just you, Hunter, just you. Well, you have like a clock where if you turn it to a certain time, it opens up a secret entrance to like your superhero cave too, right?
Of course, it's awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of
All the superheroes live in Ovid. Wow, I didn't know. I know now. I'm going to be checking that out. But my point is, we pay for that stuff. So you can just buy hosting from somebody else. You sell it. We can also co-locate, which means if Sean already owns a facility like this, I can actually bring in my own computer and set it up in his server room and make sure I'm getting that air conditioning, the raised flooring, and all those other things. So the differences are, guys, between doing it yourself and hosting it with somebody else or paying for what we refer to as co-location. By the way, the difference between hosting and co-location, remember this. If you're buying space on somebody else's server, you're paying for hosting. If you are asking to actually take your server or own a server within their server room, that's called co-location. We see most people these days are really paying for hosting because a lot of people don't want to maintain their own physical hardware anymore. So guys, with that, I think that's a good place for us to stop for today. We're going to pick this up here on Wednesday. And guys, happy last week before spring break. Hey, by show of hands before you leave, how many of you guys are seniors? Last spring break, guys. Have some fun. Todd's going to come back rich.